The marketing research process. Marketing research is very much essential to make strategic decision. Marketing research process. If we talk about marketing research, we have already seen there are a number of strategic decisions which are very important for the growth of organization. It helps in making the right decision systematically using statistical methods. I have already shared some statistical methods with you on that, like correlation, regression. So basically, what we do, we actually follow some statistical tool to generate a data so that we can come to a conclusion. So marketing research is very much essential to make strategic decisions which are important for the growth of organization. It helps in making the right decision systematically using statistical methods. Marketing research reduces the uncertainty in the decision making process and increases the profitability and magnitude of the success if conducted in a systematic, analytic, and an objective manner. Marketing research by itself does not arrive at marketing decision, nor does it guarantee that the organization will be successful in making its product. It is only a tool which helps decision making process. We can't sure that if we are actually using the technique of marketing research, our product will be going to in a profit manner, but somehow it still reduce some uncertainty, some risk factor in that. We cannot make your risk at zero, but we can minimize the risk when we are going to launch the product in the market. The steps which involved in the process of marketing are these. The marketing research process involves a number of interrelated activities which have been bearing on each other. Once the need for marketing research has been established, broadly these shown steps has been followed. The number one is establish the need for the marketing research. The second is defining the research problem. The next is establishing the research objectives. The next, determine research design, identifying data types and sources, design data types and sources, determine sampling design and size, collect the data, analyze and interpret the data, prepare the research report. All these methods we are going to follow for the next semester. Number first one is establishing the need for marketing research. A good monitoring system will alert the marketing manager to a problem that can be tagged by marketing research. Regardless of the monitoring system used, a good monitoring system constantly searches for hints that the company's marketing mix may be out of synchronization in the place of market in the marketplace. Market research may not be needed if information is already available. There is insufficient time for marketing research. Resources are not available. It costs actually more when you go for the research process. So why do you need research, marketing research? Do you think your problem is so big that you want to adopt it? If it is like that, if your problem is very much, then you have to go for the deep and in-depth analysis for the marketing product. If you have all the information available to you, then you don't require market research. If you have insufficient time for marketing to conduct the market research, then you can't do it. If resources are not available, you don't have a connection, you don't have respondent to talk to you, how can you go for the process of marketing research? So this is quite tough. So you have to see whether your company, your organization need the process of marketing research. Next is define the problem. The very initial step is basically you have to see what is the main problem. The first step is basically is this: you have to check the research problem. You have to design the research problem. A problem well defined is half solved. If a problem is poorly defined, a good research and research cannot be developed. So you have to see what is the main problem and you have to define your problem in the proper manner. So for that purpose, you have to follow a few steps like identifying and defining the problem or opportunity is a crucial step in the marketing research process. So when you define the problem, it is very important to think broadly about the possible causes. You can define the problem results with clear-cut research objectives. The decision problem faced by the company must be translated into marketing research problem in the form of questions. These questions must define the information that is required to make the decision, how this information can be obtained. This way, the decision problem gets translated into research problem. Problem definition can involve the first step is specifying the symptoms, itemizing the problem causes of the symptoms, linking the reasonable alternative courses of action that the marketing manager can undertake to solve the problem. For example, a decision problem may be whether to launch a new product. The corresponding research problem might be assessed to whether the market would accept the new product. So, in order to define the problem more precisely, an exploratory research can be carried out. Survey of secondary data, pilot studies, or experience services are some of the popular methods. The next is establish the research objectives. You should clearly mention and specific about your objectives. What specific information you required for your project? If there is availability of more than one information, you should see which is more important information to you. What are your priorities? When specifying research objectives, development of hypothesis is very helpful. Hypothesis basically relation with whether you want to go for whether you want to see this product will be advantage to the customer or not. This is your hypothesis. When achieved, objectives provide the necessary information to solve the problem. So in this step, we can say construction of hypothesis is very important. It is very important. You must see whether your decision problem has some information or not. You have to see which information is important. Then you have to actually design. You have to see the priority, your priority. Then you have to conduct the research design of your problem. In this step, you have to see whether you want to go for the hypothesis or not. Like I have already quoted, you want to see basically whether a new product is able to capture the market or customers or targeted customers. This is your hypothesis. If it is accepted, that means new product definitely going to capture the customer. If it is not accepted, that means you are not able to capture the customers. So for this purpose, what do you require? You have to determine your research design. You have to see what is your research design. If it is quantitative research or it is qualitative research. If it is quantitative research, you have to include descriptive or causal research. If it is qualitative research, you have to include exploratory research. Firstly, see what is exploratory research design. Basically, when you collect information in an unstructured and informal manner, you actually go through the exploratory research design. Exploratory research can be performed using the literature search, surveying certain people about their experiences, focus group, and case studies. During the survey, this research studies would not try to acquire a representative sample, but rather seek to interview those who are knowledgeable and who might be able to provide insight concerning the relationship among the variables. For example, reading the periodicals, visiting competitors' premises, examine company sales and profit versus industry sales and profit, and clipping services. All these part of the exploratory research design. Case studies can include contrasting situations or benchmarking against an company known for its excellence. Exploratory research may develop hypotheses, but it does not seek to test them. It is actually flexible in nature. The next is descriptive research design. It refers to a set of method and procedure that describe marketing variables. A descriptive study is undertaken when the researcher wants to know the characteristics of certain group such as age, sex, educational level, income, occupation. In descriptive research, it is very rigid as compared to the earlier one. You have to see what the user of product is, who is going to determine the proportion of the population, who is going to use the product or predict future demand for the product. In descriptive research should define questions, people survey, and the method of analysis prior to beginning data collection. In other words, the who, what, where, when, why, and how aspects of research should be defined. Such preparation won the opportunity to make the required changes before the costly process of data collection has begun. For example, customer or consumer attitude survey to your company services. You actually go to consumer, you ask them few questions regarding your company services is a part of descriptive research design. It is not flexible in nature. It is very rigid as comparative to the earlier one. The next is causal research design, in which you actually seek what causes the effect. You actually go through with why, if there is demand of a particular product, there must be increase of a price. You actually see the causal relation of these two variables. You want to check actually it has happened. If there is increase in the demand, then there is also increase in price or decrease in the price. You want to check this study. That is the part of causal research design. By changing one factor, say price, we can monitor its effect on the key consequences, such as sale. Let's take an example of a company point of view. You want to see if you actually reduce your price, their sales volume increase or not. If it is affected, the other variable, that means you are actually conducting causal research design. In other words, causal design allow us to determine causality or which variable is causing another variable to change. You have to identify the type and sources of your data. The first one is primary research. I have already tell you that if you actually go with the surveys for interview, you actually conducting primary research. It is also called cross-sectional data, or you actually see cohort analysis in it. You actually go for the interviews. In secondary research, it involves collecting information from the sources when the primary research has already been conducted. Such information includes industry statistics, market research report, newspaper articles. As the name implies, it refers to information that has been collected for some purpose. Primary data. Two types of data. One is primary data. Primary data, actually, when we study primary data, we go with the cross-sectional study. Cross-sectional study. That means cross-sectional study means we actually survey 100 of respondents at one point of time. At point of time. This is cross-sectional study. Like I conducted a survey from you people to ask whether online classes is advantages to you or not. So in the period of basically, let's see, 1st September to 10th September, I asked the whole department students. Let's see, their number of students is 200. So when In this duration, I am asking them the questions regarding impact of COVID on classes, on online classes is an example of primary data or cross-sectional study. And for this purpose, you actually adopt cohort analysis. Cross-sectional studies sample the population to make measurement at specific point in time. Jैसे, for example, it is from 1st September to 10th September. A specific type of cross-sectional analysis is a cohort analysis, which track an aggregate of individuals who experience the same event within the same interval of time. This analysis are useful for the long-term prospects of product demand. The next is secondary data. Secondary data. If you go with the secondary data, you do time series analysis. You actually study time series analysis. In this, you have number of series. Like I want to see impact of share market, gold share market कहते हैं, impact of gold prices on share market. For this purpose, I actually want to study data from 1991 to 2020. That means I am involving few years here. It is related with time. From 91 to 2020, I am considering a time period in it. Time period is involved in time series. Number of time period. You have many number of years. And also you want to study the Indian share market. Indian share market. When two parties are involved in an analysis with a time period, it is time series analysis. And for secondary, there is one more study, that is panel study. In panel study, if I want to see the impact of gold prices on market, impact of gold prices on market with different countries. With different countries. That means now I have time period for panel study. I have time period from 1991 to 2020. Also, I have share market of different countries. Like India, America, Japan, Bangladesh. So when I involve different of countries with time period, that is called panel study. If I am going to study only one country like India, only India, that means I am conducting the time series analysis. The next step, which is actually step 6, when we actually determine the method of assessing the data. Once the researcher has determined which type of data, whether he want to go for the primary data or he wants to go for the secondary data, after that he has to actually see which type of survey he wants to follow. He or she must determine method of assessing data. There are several different methods of collecting primary data that includes telephonic survey, mail survey, door-to-door interviews, Mall intercept studies, new data collection methods are emerging. Different method of collecting secondary data includes information processing technology, easy and quick retrieval, internal data, that is company reports, secondaries, salespersons, executives, MIS, and other information sources. So if you actually see that you want to go through the primary data or secondary data, then you have to see which type of data accessibility tool you want to follow. If it is primary data, you can go for a telephonic interview, or you can actually email to them, or you can go yourself by door to door to do the activity, to conduct the activity. You can actually use the mall intercept studies. You have seen in malls basically, like where they ask you certain questions that is basically related with the mall intercept studies, or you can actually see any another new data collection technique which are now emerging. And if you are actually going through the secondary data, that means you have information processing technology. From internet you can see any sort of information, easy and quick retrieval, or you can use internal data, that is company reports, salespersons से पूछ सकते हैं, executives, management information system, and other information sources. Once you decided if you want to obtain the primary data, then you will see which basically tool you want to follow. The first one is questionnaire. It is set of certain questions you actually presented to a respondent. It records the information communicated by respondents or the respondent's behavior as observed by the researcher. You can also call it observational method, in which you actually collect the data through observations. You ask a number of questions from the respondent, and observer observes and records the data faithfully and accurately. This may be suitable in case of some studies, but in some cases you cannot actually go for the observational method only. There are two types of questionnaire that is available. The first one is structured questionnaire. The second one is unstructured questionnaire. In the structured questionnaire, you already know the pre-specified answer choices. You already have some listed question. In the unstructured questionnaire, you ask and have open-ended question. Like I want to ask you people right now, say, do you think this COVID-19 will finish soon? Someone will say yes, ma'am. Some will say no, ma'am. If you say yes, ma'am, then I have to ask you next question. So at the same time, you actually form some questions. That means you are following unstructured questionnaire. When you have a list of questionnaires that you want to ask from your respondent, you follow structured questionnaires. The next is qualitative measures. Sometimes consumer response does not match their answer. Thus, unstructured techniques are used. For example, consumer journey is a technique of keeping track of all interaction of a consumer with the product or a space. Mechanical devices. Electronic devices have replaced earlier, when a person conduct the data, he actually go with the questionnaires and diary filling methods. But right now, it is like you actually want to use a electronic device. You record the answer of your respondents. This is very appropriate to the scenario. Somehow you actually learn it. You have by listening that particular record, what that particular person has answered you. The next is determine sampling plan and the sampling size. A sampling plan is very important part of a research process. The marketing research has to decide whether it will be a simple survey or a census. A simple survey, sample survey is like that. Like in Amritsar, there is 1 crore population, but you actually want to go with 1,000 of the person to ask you a question. That means you are seeking a sample size. If you go for the whole population, that is a census study. So a researcher has to plan the sampling unit, procedure, and the size. It is not possible to interview each and every person. Interviewing each and every person is population. And if you actually randomly sorting out the person to whom you want to interview, you are going to follow the process of sampling method. The researcher must define the target population from which sample has to be drawn. The researcher has to choose between probability and non-probability sampling. The choice is based on circumstances facing the company and the research work. A good sampling procedure can provide good reliability. The size of sample chosen is based on statistical method. This is well defined and also reproduces the characteristics of population. The objective is never completely attained or account of occurrence of two type of errors due to bias in selection or sampling errors. A sample plan defines who is to be sampled and how to select them for a study. Like if I want to study the population who is below poverty, so I have to see 1/3 of the population in India is below the poverty. So I have to actually see the population who live the below poverty line. That means from that particular population, I will actually plan those who belong to Amritsar, those who belong to Jalandhar under the below poverty line. I will go for my sample plan with that study only. That means I am choosing a sample from it. When out of the whole population of India who live in below poverty line, I only choose Amritsar for my study purpose. That means I have actually set my targeted sample here. A sample elements refer to unit of the entity being studied, that is Amritsar. Sample plan where we have to study the Indian study. A sample plan related here is the city of Amritsar. A sample frame is a list from which the sample elements are drawn for the sample. Now, Amritsar itself is a population of more than 10 lakh or 12 lakh. I can't study each and every person. That means I am framing also some elements from this sample. I want to study only 1,000 respondents. That means out of 12 lakh, if 1/3 of the population is under the below poverty line, that means approximately 4 lakh. I only want to study the 1,000 of the population. That means I am framing my sample here. A sample plan specify how to draw the sample elements from the sample. Now my next question is, I have thought I want to study 1,000 population, 1,000 member here. How to see 1,000 person now? For this purpose, I actually want to study some statistical techniques of sampling. I adopt some method. I can actually follow the technique of snowball sampling. Like I ask one person, do you think that person has a green card or has a blue card? If that person has a blue card, then I will ask him, do you know any other person who have a blue card? That means I am following the statistical technique to withdraw a sample here. Methods are available to the help the researcher determine the sample size required for the research study. The next is collect data. The collection of data relates to gathering of facts to be used in the problem. Data can be primary, that is collected from the original based clinical research by means of various tools. Data can be secondary, that is collected from the concerned report, magazines, and other periodicals. Exceptionally written articles, government publication, company publication, books, etc. I have already told you, if you collect your data yourself, that is primary data. If you actually see some reports, some magazines, some internet, that means you are going through the secondary data. There can be broadly two types of sources, internal sources and external sources. When you actually see the information from the firm itself, you are using the internal source. When you are actually seeing the sources from the outside of the firm, then you are going for the external sources. The next step is data processing and analysis. Data processing basically related with it begins when the editing of data is done. When you actually coding and coding of data you are is done here. Editing involves inspecting the data collection forms for the mission, legibility and consistency in classification. Before tabulation, respondents need to be classified into meaningful categories. The rules for categorizing, recording and transferring the data to data storage mediums are called codes. The coding process facilitates some manual or computer tabulation. If a computer analysis is being used, the data can be key punched and verified. Analysis of data represent the application of logic to understand data collected about the subject. For example, I asked some consumers, do you think if I decrease my price, the sales volume of my product can be increased? Some of them answered yes. Some of them answer no. That means I have two answers related to yes and no. But how to frame this yes and no? You have to code your this data. Let's suppose Coding of data. You ask a question from the consumer regarding their preferences of reduction in price. Some said yes, some said no. How to use this data now? See, a computer that only understands the language of 1 and 2. So you have to actually answer your question in only in 1 and 2. When you feed your data in Excel sheet, you actually code and decode data in 1 or 2 or 0 or 1. It can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, depend upon your choices of the answers, but it should be, data should be encoded first. Data should be in form of numerical way, not in form of yes or no. It should be in binary in nature. It should be in binary in nature. Data must be coded first. You have to code your data first. After that, after coding your data, you can only run your any statistical technique in it. There is formulating, conclusion, preparing the presenting the report. The last step is here basically you actually prepare your final report in which you mention the specific research question you have asked. I want to see how to increase the volume of my particular sales. So I will tell them this is my research question. My research question is that I want to increase the sales volume of my product, so I actually asked them some certain question. This is my research question. The next is research design in Amritsar. In on Majita Road, I want to conduct my study because my restaurant, my food uh, restaurant is there. I want to conduct my study. That means I am framing my research design here. I want to go with the primary data. Data collection technique, either it is primary data or secondary data. Data analysis procedure adopted. If I am following primary data, I have to go through with their techniques. If I am going to follow the secondary data, I have to adopt that techniques. Then after that, I have to analyze my data. I have to present my result and the major finding. The final reports reflect the skills and the quality of the researchers. It can be written on or an oral presentation or both. Visual aids such as line chart, pie chart, bar chart, pictograph can be used. A well-presented report indicates the confidence level of the researchers in presenting strategies that help in managerial decision making. Virtually all market research projects are different. Some are limited to view of a secondary data, others require complex decisions regarding large-scale collection of primary data. Understand this 11 steps of research process properly. Steps can give such an overview of entire research process, give researchers a procedure to follow and a framework. Many steps outline an interactive and researcher may decide which one to use. Cohort analysis use in cross-sectional data or time series data. Please answer this question. Only 9 participants have answered it out of 17. Cross-sectional data use the analysis of cohort analysis, not time series. Next 4. If you generate the data from the respondents themselves, which type of data it is called, whether it is primary data or secondary data. If you generate the data from the respondents, which type of data it is called? Response immediately, students. It is the primary data. Actually, we generate data from the respondent, not the secondary one. Next clue. Thus, marketing research is benefited for the companies. Very true. Yes, it actually benefits the company. The last one is structured questionnaire is when you ask them already and set decided questions, and when you ask them open-ended questions. Yes, you ask a set pattern question in the structured questionnaires.